And continuous to answer the question that was proposed to, in terms of who discovered America, we know that long before the European expansion from Europe and subsequently the founding of various different colonies within the Americas, the Portuguese found Brazil, the British found British Honduras, the Spanish found Mexico and all the other areas. And then we have what we call the colonization by the Europeans or Western nations, and they have overshadowed the truth and information of other people's ability and to make contributions towards the growth and development in the Americas. Because most white Americans, unfortunately, will say that their development came about as a result of their coming here. And some of them will say that this is a Judeo-Christian society. This has never been a Judeo-Christian society because of the fact that most of the people who came to America came to escape religious persecution in their own land. And as in England, they came to escape famine. And they were looking for land, to live and to strive and so on and so forth. You had feudal system in Europe. You had serfdom, which was the indentured enslavement, and they in turn brought those systems here to America and tried to impose that upon the American people, the Europeans being the upper class, and then you have the blacks being on the lowest as slaves. The Indians themselves, they attempted to enslave them, but they knew the land, and when they escaped into their territories, and they further moved away from European encroachment. But the white indentured servants that were brought here, because we have to mention them as well, they were able to move from colony to colony because of the fact that they had white skin. They moved to another area, they assumed a new name, they begin to develop some kind of business. They move in a concerted way economically to keep themselves off the radar so that they won't come in contact with those who had made them indentured servant or who they were in turn outsourced to. But the African, because of the complexion of his skin, where could he go? Where can you? Some of us went and mixed and intermingled with the indigenous inhabitants, and some of us, were caught and re-enslaved. But because of our black skin, it became problematic in the sense that we were even easily to be depicted, and we were captured, we were enslaved, and for running away, we would be brutally treated, tortured, and as such, sold away. And the irony about this form of slavery as opposed to any others, because slavery existed throughout the world, is that this was most cruel and inhumane treatment of man by man. Not only did you rob a man of his history, his culture, and his language and reduce them to an abject state of existence, you also, destroyed his ability to learn. Much of those people were forced not to read, matter of fact, it became a crime, punishable by death or imprisonment for whites to teach slaves to read or to write. And this gave rise to a perpetual system of enslavement, such if you was to read Alex Haley's book, called Roots, you will see the horrors of that, how they took Kunta Kinte, broke him down, and he became Toby. He no longer became Kunta Kinte, a proud African. He accepted his subservient state, and as such, this was this destruction of a human being. So Alex Haley had to go through our history. But I'll be in the next few moments, I'm going to talk about the next phase of Islamic growth and development took place in China. The Muslims intermingled in China, and such that by the time of what we call the Ming Dynasty, we have Zheng Yi, 100 years before Columbus. He was a Chinese admiral who explored the 7 seas on mercantile vessels of trade expansion. These trips on behalf of the Ming Dynasty was successful in the sense that he came in contact with many people. This was in 1405. Zheng Yi was assigned the task of increasing trade with other nations. He was to explore much of the Pacific Ocean, stopping in India, Indonesia, Malaysia, East Africa, and elsewhere, setting up ports and developing trade with many, many people. His voyages expanded over 7 years, encompassing much of the globe, making China a global power. As a matter of fact, it was at that time the sole power. Today we have problems with China, but China was a global power. And it did not use its expansion in the same way that the Europeans used it. It was for the purpose of trade, like it is today. You know, they don't care about what kind of system of government you have in your society. We're here to do business. We'll set up a port, you exchange your goods, you receive our goods. And so we see that the sole global force in the world in the 15th century, Zheng Yi ships were known as junks, were employed to service the Ming Dynasty. They were enormous, well-stocked, with over 27,800 men. They spread China culture and influence throughout the Southeast Asian area, Arabia, Eastern Africa. This is in accordance with the Encyclopedia Britannica. After helping some of the Southeast Asian countries were dealing with piracy and setting up security and safety, he was commander and admiral of over 317 ships. They were called treasure ships, packed with goods and gifts for heads of state traveling from China to Thailand, Vietnam, Malay, Indonesia, and islands of Java, and he journeyed along the Indian and Sri Lanka straits. And he also, it is said that he had trade and developed trade with East Africa, and you see that he received as a gift a draft. And this is on the mural of the wall of the Ming Dynasty, receiving this giraffe, as a gift from East Africa. And so he met with people from what we call Zimbabwe, Tanzania, probably Kenya and as well. And of course we know that he made, as well as his brother, they made Hajj. His ships or his fleet traveled the whole entire Red Sea, the coast of Arabia. He made Hajj. After Hajj, he traveled to Egypt and along the coast to East Africa. He established good relationship with Islamic nations. Chinese pottery can be found in Africa. Animals rarely seen in China was seen by the emperor of the Ming Dynasty. He stopped in Kenya, Somalia, Mozambique. Over 30 foreign rulers paid tribute to the emperor of China. In 1470 to 22, he returned as the envoy to his homeland, revisiting its courts In 1424, he died. Subsequently, on his 7th journey, he died and he was buried at sea. And the irony of it is that I forgot exactly which Muslim country, where they built a monument for him in China of what we call, his name was, some say Chin Ho, some say Zinyi, some say Mohi, which Mo's meaning Muhammad, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. But mashallah ta'ala, little is known of him, but it is on the internet. You can read it for yourself, you can learn. And it is said that some of these ships, these treasure ships, even found their way into the Caribbean and into the Americas. Allahu Akbar. So here it is, a Muslim admiral taking these treasure ships far and wide, and many of them moved throughout the world with the mission to establish trade with China and the Ming Dynasty. Allahu Akbar, this is beautiful. Now we will have our next segment, which is 1619, inshallah ta'ala. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.